Hey all, Tony Bing here, hello and welcome back to the channel. So it's that time again for an in-depth review of another new character released. So in this video we will be having a look at Ant-Man. He's certainly a really interesting character with some pretty fantastic animations. Now in the video we'll start off with a general overview that includes how you unlock him and also his tags. We'll then have a look at his stats. Next up is the abilities. Following on from that, we have a look at the synergies. This is the characters he can work well with and ones you want to avoid. And then we finish up seeing where he places in the tier list as well. So let's start off with the general overview. Ant-Man is a controller character, and he's a character that it almost appears that he's been custom built to mess around with the current meta in the game and give them problems. So that's really interesting from that perspective. Now his tags are Hero, Global, Tech, Controller and Avenger. The important ones are Avenger due to all the synergies there and how strong the Avengers team is, and also the Tech tag, we've got some pretty nice synergies there as well. Now in regards to how you unlock them, it's a timed event. This is the I Am Ant-Man Legendary Campaign event. It is going to be a bit of a slow farm with them because at the moment the drop rates are most definitely on the lower side, and hopefully in time we'll see them increase these a bit here. But that's how you unlock them and his tags. So next up, let's have a look at his stats. With Ant-Man being a controller class, then as we would expect, his damage is on the low side. It's way down at F. Now when we look at his speed, it's down at D, so it's certainly a bit on the lower side. His speed comes in at exactly 100. Now it's actually quite important that he can get his skills off as soon as possible in order to block some of the more dangerous characters. So you will want to counter his low speed, but we'll talk about ways you can do that when we do get to the synergies section. When we look at his focus, this is sitting at B, so this is certainly very nice and it is very much needed due to all the debuffs that he will be applying. Now finally, from an offensive perspective, he does have an assist. It's got a very low proc rate, so you won't be seeing it happen often, but it does add a little bit of extra damage now and again. Now with the offensive stats covered, let's have a look at the defensive stats. When we look at his defensive stats, they are on the lower side, but that's what you would expect from a controller class. So he's a character that you will want to make sure you've got adequate protectors in order to keep him alive. Now his health is down at F, so it's one of the lowest health pools in the game. His armour is on the lower side of C, so that's not too bad, but if you go up against anyone, even for a small amount of pierce, they can give him a lot of trouble. And then his resistance is D, meaning he can be quite susceptible to debuffs himself. Now also from a defensive perspective, he does have a small amount of evade in his kit. It doesn't make a huge difference, but now and again when it does proc, it can sometimes help you out of a sticky situation. Now next up, we'll have a look at his abilities. With the abilities here, we'll have a slight change from previous in-depth reviews. Now previously I was able to gain access to skills at level 7 and passive at level 5, but we no longer have access to this information at the moment. So when I'm looking at these, it'll be based on the max skills in game, which is level 6 for active skills and level 4 for passives. Now at a later date, when the level cap is increased and we get access to these skills, if they're worthwhile upgrading to the max, then I'll let you know in the actual description of this video, so feel free to check that out if you're watching this video at a later date. Now in regards to his first skill, this is his passive called Escape Plan. This is quite nice. With this, on spawn you apply evade to Wasp if she is an ally. This is probably the strongest part of the passive, and then on turn you can have up to a 15% chance to gain evade and a 10% chance to gain, it's called Assist next, but as far as I can tell it's just a regular assist. Now this you want to max it out to level 4. For the basic, we have a skill that if used correctly can be really nice. This is called Scrappy Fighter. Now with this you attack the primary target for 240% damage and you copy a positive effect from the target to self and you clear the positive effect. Now this doesn't work on taunts, just to make you aware, but it will work on the likes of defense up or offense up, so it can be very useful to apply that to yourself. Now not only that, we have another Wasp synergy here, which is great to see. So if Wasp is an ally, she will also gain the copied effect. Now Wasp is a blaster and she can put out a really nice amount of damage, so personally I would say you want to try and steal offense up from characters so you can then apply it to Wasp and help her do even more damage. Now, in regards to how high you want to level this particular skill, unless you're swimming in tier 3 materials, I would actually say just leave this at level 5, because the only difference between level 5 and level 6 is 30% damage you'll be doing to that single target. But really, the most important aspect of this skill isn't really the damage it's doing. Of course that's useful, but it's stripping that positive effect and applying it to yourself and Wasp as well. So really nice skill, this one. When we look at the special, this is a skill that can really throw the cat amongst the pigeons when it comes to how the meta works in the game. So we have our powerful characters, the likes of Kingpin and Captain America and Han Sentry, applying all their mass buffs very early on in a match. Now, depending how you build your team, Ant-Man can actually neutralise all of them. So this skill is called Gum Up the Works. Pretty strange name there, I don't know if it will tie in with the movie in some way. It's 4 turns to charge. You can use it at the start of a fight, and you will want to do that. With this, you attack the primary target for 200% damage, and you always apply ability block for 2 turns, and this attack cannot be dodged or blocked. So it's a fantastic skill. Regarding how high you want to level it, you want to max this out, because it's at level 6 that ability block changes from 1 turn to a game changing 2 turns. With this next ability, we have a contender for one of the best looking abilities in the game. This is called Stomp. Now, it takes a whopping 6 turns to charge, but if you're pairing Ant-Man up with the likes of Captain America, you will see this hopefully more often. Now, with this ability, you attack all for 130% damage, and you apply slow to all targets, which is really nice. Now also, we have more Wasp synergies here, so if Wasp is an ally, you deal an additional 30% damage to all targets. That brings it up to 160% damage in total in that mass AoE slow. You can use this at the start of the turn, of course, as well. So the only real downside to this skill is which do you use first, do you use his special or his ultimate. Sometimes it can be quite hard to decide. Now, regarding how high you want to take this, you can actually get away leaving it at level 4. I'm not necessarily saying you should do that, but at level 4 you'll do 130% damage and apply the slow to all targets. If you were to put an additional 200 tier 3 materials in it, taking you up to level 6, you're only gaining an extra 30% damage. So I don't know if it's personally worthwhile, because for me this skill is really all about the utility of adding the slow to all characters, and the damage is the bonus. So it's really down to your own personal preference and down to how many tier 3 materials you've got. Now, with the abilities covered, what we'll do is have a look at the synergies. When we look at characters that Ant-Man can work well with, we really have quite a few here. Now, the first one, and the most obvious one due to the abilities we've just covered, would be Wasp. I'm not going to run over all the synergies again, because we just talked about them a moment ago, but they really are quite strong. Now, next up you have 2 Avengers allies. You've got Captain America, who gains block chance with having an additional Avenger character in your team, and also he can provide ability energy. We then have Black Widow, and she works very well due to the speed up on the first turn, meaning that Ant-Man can act quicker, and remember he does have that low speed, so if he can act quicker, he's got a higher chance of getting his special off and applying ability block to certain characters before they can apply their mass buffs or debuffs. Now, the next character we have ties in with this as well in a way, with the lower speed in Ant-Man. This is Cable, and what he does is that he fills up your speed bar by a small percent, and it actually means you overtake certain characters so you can cast that special. The most important one being Han Sentry. You can now counter his evade and his stealth up as well. Now, the next 3 characters we look at, they're all tied in with the tech tag. You've got Vision, and Vision can add defense up to the lowest health tech characters. So if you run Vision and Ant-Man, the 2 of them will be getting the defense up. You then have Iron Man, who can provide additional crit chance, and then finally you have Rocket Raccoon, who can provide additional damage there. Now, with the allies covered, what we'll do is we'll look at the characters you want to avoid. When we look at characters you want to avoid when playing as Ant-Man, first off you have characters that can do a huge amount of damage on their first turn and also act pretty quick, so that would be Korath and Gamora. Now, Korath especially can be dangerous because he can apply the ability block before Ant-Man has a chance to apply it. Now next up you have Deadpool. Because Ant-Man's all about putting debuffs on characters, Deadpool can use them to heal, and you've also got Deadpool's special skill where he can actually break through a taunt and take out the weakest character, which in a lot of instances very well may be Ant-Man. Now next up we have 3 characters that up until now haven't had a massive amount of use in the game, but this will change with Ant-Man. So you get Jessica Jones. She's very useful because she can clear all the debuffs from her own team. Same applies to Ronan as well. So finally Ronan almost has a use. And then lastly you've got Scientist Supreme. She could work very well against Ant-Man because he's applying the mass debuffs, and she could actually flip all of them there. I don't think it's worth leveling her up though, so don't go invest in your shards and turn then come back and complaining that she's useless for 99% of the content in the game. Now with the synergies covered, let's have a look and see where he falls in the tier list. With this tier list here, what we'll do before we actually place him in it is we'll run over his pros and cons. So if we look at his positive first, you've got the fact that when some of the players that got to preview him said that he would be meta changing, they certainly weren't lying or exaggerating there. He really does cause a lot of problems for some of the most powerful characters in the game, specifically Captain America, Kingpin and Han Sentry that we have already mentioned earlier on in the video. Now next up you've got the great utility that is available on his ultimate, and also the basic. The stripping the buffs on his basic is especially nice. You've got the awesome Wasp synergies. The two of them together will be fantastic, and you actually have unique animations when they're paired together that are really nice as well. When we look at his tags, these are most definitely a positive. You've got the Avengers tag, which is a very strong team, and you've got the Tech tag, which is getting stronger by the day. And then finally, this doesn't really affect his rating, but you've got the fact that he looks completely awesome and his animations really are great. Now when we look at his downsides, we had as a positive the fact that he has an awesome synergy with Wasp. What that also means that if you don't have Wasp, then you're not actually using him to his full potential. He's also at the moment hard to farm, but that's something that hopefully will change from the massive amount of feedback that I know Fox Next are getting at the moment. Another downside of him is his low stats such as his health, his speed and his damage, but I would say that his utility more than makes up with this. And then finally you've got the fact that his passive is a little bit lackluster, but again his basic, his special and his ultimate, especially the special, more than make up for all that. Now in regards to where I would place him in the tier list, I would say that without the Wasp synergies he would most likely be a high level 3 character, which there's no shame in. There's some great characters in that section, but with the Wasp synergies they actually push him to the next level, so for that reason I would say that he is an alpha character now. As always, let me know in the comments below what you think of the video, what you think of the rating. Let me know if you've unlocked Ant-Man, what you think of him as well, and thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all again soon.